Kore Mwapenduka, and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. I'm your host, Glenn Orashipura. Let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. India's Modi failed to win outright majority. Burkina Faso named most neglected crisis for second year in a row, and strong evidence that Ethiopia committed a genocide in Tigray war, according to a report. And in South Africa, ANC seeks coalition after historic slump. Our correspondent Arrie Hougaard will be giving us a rundown on the state of affairs in Mzansi. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Let's take a look at your top stories. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has won a third consecutive term in a much tighter general election than anticipated. His Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) looks set to fall short of a majority and is leading in the 543-seat parliament below the required 272 seats. However, its coalition partners have gained additional seats. The results are a personal blow to Mr. Modi, who has always secured majorities in elections as both Chief Minister of Gujarat State and India's Prime Minister, and dominated the country's politics for a decade. The verdict marks a surprising revival for the Congress party-led India Opposition Alliance, defying earlier predictions of its decline and sharply diverging from both exit polls and pre-election surveys. Now, more than 640 million people voted in a marathon 7-week election held as a world record by election authorities. Nearly half of the voters were women. Many world leaders have crawled across the finishing line in their third-term elections, and Mr. Modi is no exception. Getting into our next story, Burkina Faso has been named the world's most neglected displacement crisis by the Norwegian Refugee Council (NRC) for the second year. In its annual report released on Monday, the NRC said the West African country saw a record high 707,000 new displacement in 2023, driven by escalating violence and a worsening humanitarian crisis. 9 out of the 10 most neglected crises outlined in the report were in Africa, with Cameroon, Central African Republic, Mali, and Niger holding the 2nd to 5th positions, respectively. The NRC said in a press release on Monday its criteria for neglected displacement crises are lack of humanitarian funding, lack of media attention, and a lack of international political and diplomatic initiatives compared to the number of people in need. The report said media coverage of the displacement crisis in Burkina Faso and international political engagements with the crisis were negligible in 2023, adding that only 37% of the requested humanitarian funding had been received by the country, leaving a significant gap in aid. The utter neglect of displaced people has become the new normal, said Jan Egeland, Secretary General of NRC. The report added that media coverage in Burkina Faso also declined as access became more difficult for both journalists and humanitarian organizations. Burkina Faso is currently under military rule after a junta staged a coup d'etat in July 2022. Its junta, headed by acting President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has prioritized security due to the multiple lives claimed by the attacks. 7 new bodies have been found as exhumations continue in the Kenyan forest of Shakahola on Monday. As exhumations continued on Monday in a Kenyan forest where hundreds of victims of a doomsday cult were found buried last year, 7 more bodies were discovered. The total number of people unearthed from the mass graves now stands at 436. The government paused the exhumations last year to allow for DNA matching of the bodies. So far, only 34 of the victims have been identified. The first bodies were discovered in April 2023 in the Shakahola forest near the Kenyan coast, leading to the arrest of pastor Paul Mackenzie, who is alleged to have led his followers to starve themselves to death in order to meet Jesus. Mackenzie has pleaded not guilty to 191 counts of murder, manslaughter, and terrorism. He has also been charged with child torture and cruelty. The case shocked Kenya, a largely Christian nation, and brought attention to the lack of regulation of churches and cults. In our next story, there is compelling evidence that Ethiopian forces committed genocidal acts during the Tigray war, a new report has concluded. Issued on Tuesday by the United States-based New Lines Institute, the 120-page draft quotes multiple widespread and credible independent reports that Ethiopian forces and their allies carried out acts constituting the crime of genocide during the conflict, which ran between 2020 to 2022. The authors call for Ethiopia to be brought before the International Court of Justice. The Tigray War erupted in November 2020 as a bid by the regional government for autonomy saw the Ethiopian military move into the northern region of the country. Thousands died in the two-year conflict, which formally came to an end in November 2022. Both sides accused each other of atrocities, including massacres, rape, and arbitrary detentions, but each strenuously denies responsibility for abuses. In a report issued last September, the United Nations said war crimes and crimes against humanity were still being committed nearly a year after government and Tigrayan regional forces agreed to end the fight. The New Lines Institute report now states that there is sufficient evidence that Ethiopia engaged in actions violating the Genocide Convention, including the targeting of civilians with mass killings and starvation tactics. Getting into our next story, U.S. President Joe Biden said Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu may be stalling on ending the war in Gaza for political reasons, according to an interview with Time magazine released on Tuesday. The comments in the May 28th interview were made a few days before Biden detailed a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, and as the Israeli Prime Minister struggles with deep political divisions at home. Asked whether he thought Netanyahu was prolonging the war for his own political reasons, Biden said there is every reason for people to draw that conclusion. Biden, who has been pushing for an end to the nearly 8-month war, also said it was uncertain whether Israeli forces have committed war crimes in Gaza. He rejected allegations that Israel is using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, but said, "I think they've engaged in activity that is inappropriate." Now, on the other side of the break, we'll be talking to Arrie Hougaard, who will be giving us a rundown on the state of affairs in South Africa.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
When I cross over to Arrie Hougaard. Good morning, Arrie.
Very good morning, Glenora. Nice to talk to you. Cold Cape Town. So it doesn't look like there's a bit more clouds than behind me at the moment.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, getting into the news, South Africa is in uncharted waters politically. What is the general feel of the citizens in South Africa?
Yes, the general feel is everybody's taking a deep breath. There's 2 weeks since this last Sunday for negotiations on coalitions. I think that's well reported, and I think everybody is well aware of that. That's the situation South Africa finds themselves into. It's been a week. I can't believe it's a week ago that we voted, but the counting has been done. And so now the representatives in Parliament has been decided. So what happened briefly was 40.2% for the ANC, 21.8% for the DA, and 14.6% for the MK and MK party, and 9.5% for EFF. So that means how many seats you have in parliament. And the big issue here is that there's the ANC didn't get enough votes to have a majority, the 50% plus one. So they have 159 seats in parliament out of the 400, and the DA 87, and then the MK, the Mkhonto Sizwe party, surprisingly have 58. That's all new seats coming in. So the ANC dropped from 230 to 159. So that makes it difficult. That's where it's all going to happen. That's in parliament. So what's happening now, and the situation where I say we need to take a deep breath, is there's discussions going on. We all speculate. There's lots of speculation what the combinations might look like with the positives and the negatives. At the moment, it seems like President Ramaphosa, his preferred option would be to try and have a multi-party combination of the ANC and the Democratic Alliance and the IFP. That's one of the options. The other options, obviously, is the ANC to form sides with the EFF and the Mkhonto Sizwe party. And then also there's a possibility of, they just call it the government of unity, that will have the all five of the biggest ones together. It's the ANC, the DA, MK, EFF, and IFP. That will kind of go back to 1994 in a way, where President Nelson Mandela said that after the elections in 1994, there was a tri-party unity, and that was, in those days, it was the ANC, the old NNP, the old National Party, and the IFP that formed the three-party coalition. And people can maybe remember 1994, President Mandela was the president, and the former president, de Klerk, was the vice president, and that was kind of showing the unity in the country. So now, all of a sudden, in 2024, we're standing at this junction now, where people need to come together in rooms, and they must decide and who's working together. And I think the tricky thing, Glendora, just briefly, is that we're not sure how the manifestos of all the other parties are going to be pulled into this, because obviously if you negotiate, you have a manifesto and there's things that you feel serious about. So how to compromise and to protect the laws of the country. So yeah, we're taking a deep breath down here in South Africa.
Yes, this is definitely a call for unity. Now, I'm wondering, how does the economic outlook look like, considering the political state of affairs right now?
Yes, at the moment, it's one indicator is the rand dollar maybe as well, but there's other indicators playing into that as well. So markets are looking cautiously about what's happening in South Africa. The rand dollar is stable, quite stable. It went up to 18 rand and 90 cents just before the elections. It's kind of stable now, around about the 1850s. It's all about the combination. It could go up to 20 rand. It could go down to the 17s. But the experts say there's not going to be much movement. I think the one big factor is investors putting money into South Africa, and the other component is investors taking money out of South Africa. So there's been net movements of the previous 2023 movement of 21 billion South African rand going out of the country, but there was also a good influx of almost the same amount in the same year. So it kind of balances out. But South Africa is still the strongest economy in Africa. So people still want to invest and be part of that, and obviously part of BRICS, so that will keep South Africa strong. But yes, the combinations of how this coalition plays out will have effect on the economy.
All right. Now, I did hear of some rumbles in KwaZulu-Natal following the election results. What's going on there?
Yeah, I think the rumblings there is that former President Jacob Zuma is challenging the IEC, the Electoral Committee, and he says that the count isn't correct. He said, quote unquote, that the MK won the election. That's what he said, so it's quite a big statement. And he quote unquote said, where did the DA and ANC get all the votes? That is also what he said. So I don't know, it seems to be just ruffling up the feathers there in KwaZulu-Natal. The reality there is that all of a sudden the DA, the ANC and the DA is not in charge there. They've got lots of votes, the majority in that area. But anyway, there's been extra police and extra forces being sent to that area. Of course, the riots of 2021 came from that area, so there's a bit of concern that if they're not happy, there might be problems there. So it's not at the moment the case, but they just putting some precaution there in place. So at the moment, former President Zuma says he's not going to send his 58 representatives yet to Parliament. He still wants to figure out how they can address the counts that's not right. So there's lots happening in South Africa. Hopefully we can all just find it around the table, be peaceful, and find a solution for all of us to move forward.
Well, we hope the same for you guys as well. Thank you so much, Arrie Hougaard, for bringing us these, especially the state of affairs in South Africa.
Yes, big pleasure, Kunora. And this next week will be crucial. We talk next week again. Next week, Wednesday, when we talk, there'll be lots to talk about. So let's see how it develops. But have a great day in Windhoek. Bye-bye.
We're looking forward to that update. Let's head over to the weather predictions before we return with economic news. Getting into our economic news, South Korea and African nations have pledged to intensify cooperation for enhanced trading while supporting Africa's path for shaping a future of sustainable co-prosperity. The 2024 South Korea-Africa Summit, the inaugural summit between Korea and 48 African countries, kicked off in Seoul on Tuesday. Africa is young, dynamic, and affluent with resources, while Korea has high technology and a variety of experience. We will bring the strength of each other together and discover a sustainable resolution, President Yoon Suk-yeol said while delivering opening remarks. Getting into our next story, Japan's transport ministry raided the headquarters of motor giant Toyota on Tuesday as a scandal over faulty safety data escalated. The world's largest car maker has apologized for providing incorrect or manipulated data for safety certification tests. The scandal has shaken the Japanese car industry, with rivals Honda, Mazda, and Suzuki also admitting to submitting faulty data. Toyota sold more than 11 million passenger vehicles in 2023. It has said the findings do not affect the safety of the vehicles already on the road. The company has suspended the production of 3 car models, the Corolla Fielder, Corolla Xeo, and Yaris Cross. It has also been accused of using modified vehicles during safety collision tests for vehicles that are no longer in production. Let's take a look at our economic indicators before we head into our sports news. Brian and Richard are bringing us the latest news directly from the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup in Caribbean Cricket Joel. And of course, Arrie Hougaard will be bringing us the rest of the sports news.
Okay, guys, a good win against Oman. I had to catch up with the big man himself, who I felt was the MVP of that game, David Visser, who just told us a bit about how he enjoyed the game. But luckily, we are looking forward to the game against Scotland, and we are all excited that you Namibians do not have to stay up until 2 a.m. for this one, because this one plays nice and early. But let's hear what David Visser had to say about Oman's game.
Yeah, it was always nice to get the team over the line at the end there. It was a bit tense. It was quite a intense situation there at the end, and I might have aged a little bit in those last few overs there. But it's always nice to be the guy to put your hand up and to win it for your team. There were other great results for the guys in the game. I thought Ruben Superman bowled beautifully for us to set the game up, and then Jan Fludding batted nicely to put us in a chance almost at the end there. But we're going to have to learn from what we've done in that last game now. We've got another big game against Scotland, and we've got to put that win behind us and look forward to the next one.
Another standout performer in the game against Oman has to be Lungameni, and this is his debut at the T20 World Cup. So we do catch up with him, and he tells us more about how he enjoyed his first game.
Yeah, my mindset was focused on it's just another game. That's how I tried to keep my mind from wandering. I think that kept me calm. In that perspective, I think it was obviously a great stage to showcase my skills and obviously to show off what we do have and what we can do coming from Namibia.
It looks like we are entering the rainy season here in Barbados, and luckily the team did get in a good training session. And here Lungameni tells us on what the focus was in this training session before Scotland.
Yeah, the training sessions were good. The focus was a lot on the batting. Obviously, the guys had also to run in and bowl a few just to get the sweat out. But other than that, it was stock standard, normal as usual, and I don't think there was anything really extra from the usual.
Anyway, there you guys heard it from the players themselves. The game against Scotland is definitely a big one. Kicks off at 9 o'clock. We do not have any excuses to not watch this game, Namibians. So tune in on DSTV if you're not in the Barbados. If not, make sure to go on Facebook, check out Sport Rep. We'll be giving you the latest updates on that game. So yeah, we'll be seeing you on Thursday at 9 o'clock.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cricket news first. The T20 World Cup that is for men taking place at the moment in the West Indies and also in New York. News result coming in from New York is Afghanistan that was way too strong for Uganda. They thrashed them by 125 runs. That was in the first game of their game in Group C that was played in New York. It was Afghanistan that batted first. They made 183 for the loss of 5 wickets in their allotted 20 overs and then bowled out Uganda for just 58 in the 16th over. Earlier also on Monday in the tournament, it was South Africa that got their tournament off to a winning start, and they played against Sri Lanka also in New York. A difficult pitch, low scores in that game. It was Sri Lanka bowled out for 77. Great performance by Arrie Hougaard, the fast bowler for South Africa. He took 4 wickets in 4 overs for just 7 runs. It was South Africa that made 80 runs for the loss of 4 wickets to win. It was in the 17th over that they scored the winning runs. The next game for South Africa will be this coming Saturday when they play also in New York against the Netherlands, and also Namibia in action on Thursday. That's when they play against Scotland. Continuing international sports news with soccer news, and that is news from Kylian Mbappe. He's the French international. So he's in the news because he's confirmed to play for Real Madrid for the next 5 years. So the 25-year-old will join Real Madrid on the 1st of July. He played for Paris Saint-Germain the last few seasons. There will be lots of money involved in that move. He will earn 15 million euros annually, and also there's 150 million signing bonus for him. That's a lot of money that will be paid out over the next 5 years of his contract. According to Mbappe, it is a dream come true for him to play for Real Madrid, and it is Real Madrid that the past weekend won their 15th Champions League. On to tennis news, and it's the Roland Garros, the French Open, that continues. It's week 2, and most games would be played now in the quarterfinals. What happened in the 4th round in the women's side of the draw? It is Mira Andreeva. She's just 17 years old. Great performance through to the quarterfinals, beating Vavura Shazeva 7-5, 6-2 to advance.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning, and if you've just joined us, here are the headlines. India's Modi failed to win outright majority. Burkina Faso named most neglected crisis for second year in a row. South Korea cement ties with African nations in key mineral supply chains. And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. From me, Glenn Rashipura. Until next time.